Jordan Rains here with the IDP 411 podcast. Just want to tell you guys today about our sponsor of the show, expandtheboxscore.com. Expandtheboxscore.com has premium NFL and college football stats. They're adaptable, they're affordable, there's all kinds of great stuff on there from the NFL to college football. It's great for people that are in the Devy leagues looking to get that edge over their league mates. So go check out expandtheboxscore.com, proud sponsor of the show. And now without further ado, on to the IDP 411.
What's up? This is Jared Gray with my co-host Jordan Rains. We're going to talk about breakouts and busts for 2020 season. I'm sure I'm going to step on some toes today, but I'm just glad to be back. So what's up, Jordan?
Not much, man. Glad to have you back with us. You've been kind of in and out for a little while, but back to the original squad. No guests today. No tomfoolery with divisions. We're just going to talk about some players and do our thing and vibe.
Yeah, that's what's up. We're ready to go.
Yep. I guess we need to talk about Jamal Adams, the trade that broke Twitter for a while yesterday. He finally went somewhere that's going to appreciate him. He ended up going to the Seattle Seahawks for 2 firsts and like a third, and then Bradley McDougald, and then I guess the Jets gave up a 4th and Jamal Adams, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, it was a lot, man. You're looking at. You wonder if they gave up too much. I mean, let's be real. I still think Jamal Adams is one of the best defensive players, not just best safeties in the league, but one of the best defensive players in all of football. And it's crazy how, you look at people dropping him because he left, but they're not moving Bradley McDougald, because he went. But I think that's because I think a lot of people think Marcus Maye is going to be the guy, including me. But I don't know what's going to happen. I think that the Jets got a really good deal in the aspect of how many trades and stuff they got. So how do you feel about it?
I mean, the Jets, if you want to talk from a GM point of view, the Jets have more assets to play with now. But, what do you want? Do you want to win football games, or do you want to play GM, for a decade and just kind of move stuff around all the time? They get a good return, and they're going to have capital to – I don't know what they're going to do, though. Everyone was a staunch Sam Darnold believer till yesterday, and now I'm seeing people like, oh, now they have enough to go up and get Trevor Lawrence. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, weren't you all just on Sam Darnold? He's 22. He's going to be so good. Like, it's just people just there's a lot of Jets fans out there that want to spin this as a positive for them, which it is. Having picks is nice, but I'd rather win in season than in July, or in April. Personally, that's just me. And the Seahawks made a move to win in season, and the Jets made moves to win the 9 other seasons of the month, or 8 other seasons of the month, whatever, how long we don't have football. So that's kind of my opinion of it. I see that some people have Jamal Adams is now down to the defensive back 3 on Fantasy Pros. Bradley McDougald hasn't moved at all, which is kind of interesting to me. Jamal Adams isn't moving for me. He's my DB1. I'm not going to overthink this. He's the best player at his position in the NFL. He just went to a great team with a defensive legacy, and he's going to thrive there. And I don't care if he gets as many pass rush snaps. I don't care. What I've seen him do on the field has been the most dominant defensive player on the field almost every time he's on the field. And he did it 2 years ago without a bunch of sacks. He finished top 4 this year, missing 3 games. It's just, don't overthink this. I just think, he's the best at his position, and he should be the DB1. And that's my thought process. I'm happy for the Seahawks too. Like, that defense is kind of got. That's an uptick for that defense all around.
Oh man, sure. They're just getting better and better. It seems like they just keep adding players all of a sudden, and you're just, man. Yeah, the Seahawks could be really strong this year defensively, which is, they haven't been the Legion of Boom in a while. And the thing is they played as good as a team as anybody when they played San Francisco. Down to the wire last year. So,
yeah,
they very easily could have been the team in the, in that division in the NFC alone. So, and We'll see, man. I really like what they've done. I really like what they've done offensively and defensively. So
Yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting too. I tweeted this out about a month ago, but Jamal Adams had as many quarterback hits in 2019 as Jadeveon Clowney had. So, I mean, he lives behind the line of scrimmage, and yeah, maybe the pass rush snaps won't be there, but it just kind of shows you the abilities that this guy has. Like he's not just a box safety. Anyone that tries to just say, "Oh, he's just a safety," safeties
that
aren't
dude has
worth
so
it.
much range, man.
And people like say, like, "Oh, people safeties aren't worth that much." But look at the safety market. I mean, Minka went for a first last year. Jamal Adams went for 2 firsts. I mean, the safety market is not what it is in your head, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
2 firsts and a third, right?
Yeah. So just
That's
stop.
crazy, bro.
If you're devaluing it, you're living in the past at this point. Like we've seen these trades happen now. Like the good safeties are worth what they're worth. So Jamal Adams, DB1 for me. Anyone else that's got anyone else at their number one spot, I mean, it's contrarian, it's cute, it's fun, and that player will probably finish top 3 and you'll probably still look good, but just put Adams at 1 and let's just move on. That's my
Let's
thought
rock.
process.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
let's get right into it, I guess.
Let's talk some breakouts and some busts. All right. So just before we get into this, we want to, frame this properly. Breakouts. So we're going to use Fantasy Pros, their rankings, since that's kind of a composite of a lot of different guys. It's not just me. It's not just Jared. It's not just some, wherever. It's a lot of different guys from a lot of different spaces. So we're going to use breakouts. Our parameters are going to be guys ranked outside the top 24 that we think could finish higher than they're ranked in the Fantasy Pros consensus. It's just that simple. We're not saying they're going to break out into the top 5 or top 10. We're saying they're going to do better than what they're at right now. And same thing with the bust. It's going to be guys in the top 24 ranked that we think are going to finish lower than where they're ranked in Fantasy Pros. Not saying they're going to completely bust out like a guy that's ranked 15 is going to finish 60. I mean, it could be a guy finish 16 that finishes 30. It's just we want these guys that have the broader range of outcomes, and there's a little less certainty to what they're going to do. So that's going to kind of frame us up for what we've got going on. And do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Well, where we're gonna start? Defensive line, or we're gonna start safety?
Let's do let's start defensive line, and I'll just go ahead and start because I'm looking right at my guy. Right now, my first guy for this breakouts and busts for DL is Jason Pierre-Paul. He is ranked right now in Fantasy Pros at the 29th defensive lineman off the board, going behind guys in their rankings like D Ford, Eric Armstead, Brandon Graham, Grady Jarrett. I think that, when you look at his season last year and what he paced for, essentially he scored in the same number of games, 10, what Myles Garrett scored. And Myles Garrett on this consensus list is number 4. They basically both have about 165, 170 points in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring in a 10-game stretch. So he was pacing a guy that's ranked a lot higher than him. He has a consistent history of being a good pass rusher. He gets these freak injuries that happen to him, but he's a premier player, a premier edge rusher, and he's only 31. Like, he's not 100 years old. J.J. Watt's 32. He had a 16-sack season last year or 2 years ago at 30 or 31. So, I mean, these guys, they don't age out quite like we want them to in our brains. Some of these guys have their best season. Cameron Jordan, for instance, he had his best season last year. I think he just hit 30. So pass rushers can continue to develop their craft and get better and not worse necessarily. So Jason Pierre-Paul for me is a guy that I think is going to easily outperform being ranked 29. So that's my breakout defensive lineman for the year, and he's so cheap in drafts. What do you think about Jason Pierre-Paul?
Again, with what you at the price you get him, I mean, for the year, I think Jason Pierre-Paul's a phenomenal pick. You brought him up before we started the show, and I was like, man, you're going to talk about somebody that could really move, especially because he hasn't had a full season with Sue like Shaq Barrett has, which that's a big deal, and we saw what Shaq Barrett did with a full season with Ndamukong Suh next to him. So, yeah, I'm with you. Jason Pierre-Paul could have a monster year, and especially compared to where his ADP's at. So, yeah, give me all that, bro. I'm with you. That's a great pick.
Nice.
For me, a guy that I've consistently been high on since, his senior season, for me is Jeffrey Simmons. I think, once he came on the scene, in his first game on the scene, he had a forced fumble, strip sack forced fumble right away. And I could just see Jeffrey Simmons just outperform his ADP by a mile. Now that he's on a consistent playing basis, he's going to get a lot of looks. And I think that, have you seen this guy? I mean, he's not human. He's just big, dude. I mean, he was bred for the NFL. And, I think that you're going to see a big breakout from him. I'm pretty excited to see what he does this year. I have to look at his ADP top of my head, but I know it's outside the top 24 by a mile.
Yeah. It is.
And I could see him being a top 20 guy. And I really believe that. If you see what he does to some offensive linemen, he's just a monster. And I really think that he's going to be one of my biggest breakouts of the year. And that's why I had to go with him.
Yeah. So I love that pick. He's ranked 56 right now in Fantasy Pros. And, you have to remember what he did last year. He did coming off an ACL surgery. And he was a game wrecker towards the end of the season there, but it didn't really get noticed a lot because the Titans were looking so good on offense. I mean, they were hitting on all cylinders. A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill. So it was easy for these defensive guys, up-and-comers, to be not noticed like they should be. So I love that pick. Great pick there. I actually wrote about him in my third rookie rusher recap article that's up on Dynasty Nerds, my most recent one. He's one of the guys I talked about as a potential guy that you want to get on your teams now before the hype hits, because when the hype hits, especially with Tennessee doing better than they have been in the past, they're no longer a dumpster fire. When the hype hits, it's going to hit hard. So I love that pick. All right, let's move on to linebackers. So my linebacker breakout, again, this is a guy who's ranked outside the top 24. Now I think they could outperform where he's ranked. Is got to be my dude, Nick Wikowski. Nick Wikowski is ranked 41 right now in Fantasy Pros, and he plays with his hair on fire. I mean, if anybody picked him up last year when Roquan Smith went down, that first game that Roquan didn't play in last year, I'm sure you remember, he just came out and just set the world on fire. He had a bigger game than Roquan had up to that point in the season playing his role. I think he had a sack, an interception, and then Roquan came back and his playing time dipped again, but then Trevathan got hurt. And then Roquan ended up getting hurt again. So this guy ended up being out there towards the end of the season a lot. And he was good enough to get a nice contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. He got noticed. He's playing next to I'm sorry, his name's
Cory Littleton.
Exactly. I don't know why I would call him Jordan for some reason. Cory Littleton now. I mean, the Raiders defense now has two guys that are very good linebackers that are multifaceted. They can get behind the line of scrimmage for tackles for loss. They're pretty decent in coverage, and they get the tackles. I love him this year to outperform 41. I mean, I could easily see him finishing, 24, 25, just being a rock-solid linebacker, too, for your team. Some guys, like, up in that area, we have, like, Danny Trevathan, Todd Davis, Rashaan Evans, Matt Milano. Those guys are all, like, 25, 26, 27. I could easily see Wikowski up there with those guys. And then at 30, Patrick Queen and Khalil Mack, I would take Wikowski 10 times out of 10 over all those guys, except maybe Rashaan Evans and Trevathan. That's kind of where my head's at with him. I like it. He's going to get his shot to be a full-time guy now, and we've seen what he can do when he had that shot. So I'm going to gobble that up at ranking number 41, and I'm going to take those points to the bank.
I like it. I mean, you know me, I was a Wikowski guy last year. I am this year. I think Cory Littleton helps everybody. And I truly believe that. I think Cory Littleton's one of the best linebackers in the league. If you just see what he does fantasy football wise, his production is crazy. He's always around the ball somewhere. So yeah, I like the pick. I think Wikowski has a big year. He's going to be one of those tier guys that is. I think he moves up from where he is, and that's why he's on this list. And I agree with you 100%. For me, we're going to get a guy who left the Raiders, and Tahir Whitehead. I was going to use somebody else, and we talked about Nate Gerry being an alternate here. But, man, you don't talk about a model of consistency. And we're talking Tahir Whitehead, who Shaq Thompson isn't Luke Kuechly. Love or hate him, Shaq Thompson was a safety in college, moved to linebacker, finally hit his mold, and he's pretty solid overall. But I think he still has that safety mind to him. I think Tahir Whitehead gobbles up all kinds of stuff this year. I can see 120, 130 tackles, no problem from Tahir Whitehead. I think he, especially consider where his ADP's at. I mean, it's crazy long. We just looked at it a little bit ago, and in comparison, I just think he has a big year, and I've continued to keep grabbing him in different leagues. And if you just look at the stats, I mean, you know me, I'm a floor guy, and if a guy can give me 120 tackles, yeah, give me that floor all day. So he's my guy.
Currently, linebacker 38 Fantasy Pros consensus, and he's actually got the little down arrow by him. So I guess some people moved him down. But like you said, I mean, he's consistent, not flashy, but consistent, and he's a proven veteran on a very, very young Panthers team. So I'm with you. I think that he's gonna. Everybody's on Jeremy Chin, but nobody's really talking about Tahir Whitehead as a guy who might blow up.
Jeremy Chin even signed his contract yet?
I don't know. I'm not a contract guy.
I mean, we got 4 days until
I'm sure they'll get something.
2 days.
I'm sure they'll get something worked out.
Yeah, so but I don't know. I love him. I think it's a big move for him. So
he could easily outperform 38. I mean, when you think about the fact that Luke Kuechly was a top 10 guy last year, and he's essentially going to play the Luke Kuechly role, for him to be at 38, I don't know. That's a little. I'm with you. That's a little shady on the consensus, and I think that he could outperform that. So great pick there by you for him. Buy the old man discount or whatever, for whatever reason people are hating him, just buy it because it's going to get you points and it will be a guy you don't have to think about a lot. So let's move to the defensive backs. So for my defensive back breakout this year, I am going to go with my dude who I've kind of been on. I haven't talked about him a whole lot recently, but that's Cory Willis for the Indianapolis Colts. Currently ranked 51 consensus defensive backs. That's a guy that's on your bench. He's not even starting. I mean, he's not even close to starting for most people. And I think Cory Willis is going to vastly outperform that. I mean, he had like 70 tackles last year, 71 tackles. He did only play like 60% of snaps or something like that because they still had hooker gathers going on. But he's a stud. When you watch him play, he's very capable. He's a hard hitter. Then some of the Colts players say that Colts players on his own team have called him the guy who's going to break out this year. I know they drafted Blackman, I think. Was that who it was? Julian Blackman was the rookie they drafted.
Is it Blackman or Blackwell? Something like that. I
think it's one of them. But long story short, Cory Willis is the guy I'm targeting in that backfield. Him and Kenny Moore. And I think once this kid hits 100% of snaps or even like 90% of snaps, I mean, his numbers are they're going to go up. And to be ranked at 50-something with 70 tackles already, that's kind of low for me. I mean, 75 tackles is that threshold of a guy you can kind of play every week as a 2. The snaps weren't necessarily there, so that might be a little scary for some people, but I think he's going to vastly outperform DB 51. I think you could be looking at him as a top 36 DB fairly easily. I mean, I'd take him over guys like Eddie Jackson. Demarius Randall right now is ranked 35 in Fantasy Pros. Like, give me Cory Willis over both those guys every day of the week right now, especially with the upside. I mean, we kind of know what we have with guys like Demarius Randall and Eddie Jackson. It's not really going to be close to a top level DB. We kind of seen their ceiling. Maybe Cory Willis has got a higher ceiling once he hits 100% of snaps than those guys. So I'm going to take the risk, I'm going to buy low at 51 for Cory Willis, and I'm going to have faith that he's going to finish in the top 30. And yeah, that's my breakout guy for defensive backs. Who do you got? Or what are your thoughts on Cory Willis before you give us yours?
Love Cory Willis. He's one of those guys that he's without a doubt my DB 2 or 3 on my team. I think, like you said, me, I'm a floor guy, and 71 tackles out of a guy who got 60% of snaps last year. He hits 100 tackles this year. Don't think it's a problem. I think him and Tremaine Edmonds or Terrell Edmonds are gonna be in the same aspect of tackles, and I truly believe that. I love Cory Willis, and you know how much I love him. We've talked about it, and with what they've done in front of him, how can you not? I mean, bringing DeForest Buckner in, a healthy Houston, Darius Leonard healthy, Cory Willis could have a big year. So, I mean, quarterbacks are not going to like that team. I think the Colts, if Rivers plays up to potential of what he can play, they're gonna make the playoffs, and that's gonna be a scary team defensively. So
yeah, I agree. It's gonna be, and Cory Willis is gonna be a big part of that, I think. So, who's your breakout defensive back for us, big guy?
Well, I was high on him before. After yesterday's trade, Marcus Maye is my guy. If you look at the time that he got to play, and after Adams got hurt, he had a 25-point game in fantasy, he had an 18-point game in fantasy. In one of the leagues, he had a 25, 20, and 16. And another league had 25, 18, and 16, and 15 in the last 4 games. If you give me a guy, a safety who wasn't getting a ton of playing time, moved over, played a position where he's going to play this year, and averages 18 points a game, he's my breakout player all day. I don't even know where he's at on ADP. He's off the charts, I'm sure.
I'm looking right now, and I'm having trouble finding him. I think so.
So I am telling you right now.
Listen to this. Right now, he's Fantasy Pros consensus DB 117.
Easy. No. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now.
Money.
Money. This is the easiest breakout of our show. So
go buy Marcus Maye.
Go buy Marcus Maye all day long. He was a buy before. And the thing is, he's not like he was a bad play last year overall, especially at the end of the season. I mean, people are grabbing him up. I know you and me grabbed him up last year after Adams got hurt. Well, now you got to go grab him because Adams is gone. And in that division and with that playing time, man, he's going to cut that. He's going to be top 50. He might even be top, 25. And to outplay 117 all day, that'll be an easy play.
Well, the way people are downplaying, what Jamal Adams did, I mean, any old slob should be able to plop right in there and do good, right? I mean, Jamal Adams is just just throw any old box safety in there and he'll be fine. Right?
I think I like Bradley McDougall. Don't get me wrong, but I think McDougall going to play the other side. That's what he's used to playing. He's not a high tackle box safety guy. That's just not who he is. And
I think his career like 90 tackles or something like that.
I don't know, and I just think that Marcus Maye's the biggest breakout of the show just after yesterday's trade.
Within our parameters, he's definitely going to outperform 117 guys. So that's a smash. I gotta move my Fantasy Pro rankings a little bit. Maybe I can help bring him up. Maybe I'll put him at 1. See where that puts him in.
Just move straight to number 1.
Yeah. Other comments on Marcus Maye real quick, guys. Go back and listen to episode 35, our AFC East preview with Greg Thompson. He had a lot of good things to say. Shout out my boy Greg at Cover One. He gave us some really good insights into Ed Oliver, I thought, and he gave us some really good insights into what would happen if Jamal Adams were traded. Greg, like I said, works for Cover One. He covers the Bills, so he's very familiar with that division and the nuances of their front offices and their personnels. And he said that I remember distinctly this because I bookmarked it. He said, if something happens to Jamal Adams, if he goes away, he's like, I would look for Marcus Maye to fill that spot. And I forget exactly what he referenced as to why, but go back and check out that episode. You can find out. He also talked about Ed Oliver, who apparently all of his charges got dismissed, guys. He said that even if this all goes through the system as it was supposed to, Ed Oliver is not going to face any kind of suspension this year. With the way that everything is in the world, it's going to take a while for that litigation to go through. And if Ed Oliver were to miss any time, it's going to be next year, not this year. And I've heard some people in the IDP space talk about Ed Oliver missing time this year. And that's just
he ain't now.
Yeah, categorically, that was never really going to happen this year. And now we know for sure, well, unless the NFL does something goofy, he's pretty much good to play all 16 this year. So don't fade out Oliver because you assume that he's going to miss any time, because we have no proof of that. We don't even have any inkling of that. So go back, like I said, check out that episode. That was one of my favorite episodes. We called that the Bills episode because we spent about 45 minutes talking about the Bills. But that's because that division was all Bills players, basically. And then we spent a good chunk of time talking about Adams. So that was a good.
You're
So
right.
now we're going to move on to our bust, and this is where people are probably going to get in their feels, which is fine. We all have feelings. That's, we don't want to make them invalid. But these are guys that we think in the top 24 that could bust out of their spot, that could finish lower than that. We're not saying that they're going.
Even if they go from 1 to 4 or 1 to 2, or
That's lower than, it's
that's
good
lower
still,
than.
But just in general,
Not trying to get in somebody's feelings, but that's what we feel. So,
and these were the guys we had. We chose these parameters, top 24 of Fantasy Pros consensus ranking. So these are going to be big names, and but these are just guys that we have less confidence in than the other guys in the top 24. So we're going to go ahead, and I'll just kick us off. My defensive line guy who I think has the highest chance to bust this season, and this hurts me to say because he's a guy that my very first article I ever wrote was about him breaking out, is Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard last year, 76 combined tackles at defensive line, had the second most behind only Cameron Hayward, 8.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 13 quarterback hits, 3 pass deflections. Sam Hubbard finished last year in IDP 1-2-3 scoring as the defensive lineman 11, right behind Aaron Donald and right ahead of Max Crosby. And this year, right now in Fantasy Pros, he's consensus DL 10. So we've actually moved him up a spot from where he finished. He's the only guy in that top 10 that didn't break double-digit tackles or sacks, besides Cameron Hayward. They got there on the back of their high tackle numbers. Well, the Bengals went out this year and they drafted 3 linebackers. Not 1, not 2, 3. Sam Hubbard doesn't have to be that guy anymore. Sam Hubbard doesn't have to run guys down the field and make tackles anymore. He doesn't have to. He can kind of worry about rushing the passer now. And those opportunities for him to get 70 tackles, I don't see them as there anymore. And I think if Sam Hubbard can't break into that 10 sack range, he's going to bust out of a top 10 spot. I think he's more of an 18 to 20 kind of guy. I need to double check my actual rankings to see where I have him, but I think that that's a very good chance that Sam Hubbard finishes in that area. As I say that, I have Sam Hubbard ranked at 12, but that's still lower than the consensus, which is at 10. I think that Sam Hubbard is, if anybody in the top 24 is going to bust out, I think it's going to be him, because I don't think the tackles are going to be there for him this year. And I don't know if he's a legit enough pass rusher to break 10 sacks without a lot of help. I know they added DJ Reader, but I just have more faith in Carlos Dunlap, if I'm being completely honest, to be the guy on that line than I have in Sam Hubbard. So that's my bust candidate for the top 24 at D-line. What are your thoughts on Hubbard, and then who you got for us?
Man, I have a heart for Hubbard. I just watched him in college. As much as I'm not an Ohio State fan, I love his play, and I love that he's been a dark horse candidate from the get-go, and I see it. Don't get me wrong. 100%, see the fact that he wrote his tackle numbers, and he didn't have high sack numbers. His quarterback hits were phenomenal. But I mean, if people think you're going to hurt some feelings, I'm really about to hurt some feelings.
Oh, boy.
Danielle Hunter is my bust candidate. Listening. All right. I think people need to understand it. And I know I talked about this a couple of shows ago. You lose Everson Griffin, All-Pro. Linval Joseph, All-Pro. And you don't know what you really got right there on your defensive line, because you're moving, Fetty over to the defensive end, and he was playing a little backup defensive line last year with his 7 or so sacks. So I'm telling you, the line isn't as structured as it was before, which means you can focus on Danielle Hunter more than ever, because you had to focus on Linval Jovis. You had to focus on Everson Griffin. You don't have to do that anymore. You have to look at the one guy that has wrecked the league, and Danielle Hunter, which is why he's not going to be the defensive end one. And I'm sure that I'm going to get all kinds of flack for this, but there's too much moving parts on that team for me to realize he's going to be defensive one. Listen, Linval Joseph has been a stud for years. Everson Griffin, stud for years. Ndamukong Suh changed, Aaron Donald and Shaq Barrett's career in the aspect of their quarterback hits, right? Don't get me wrong. I've been a massive Aaron Donald fan long before he, went in the pros. When he was at Pittsburgh, his Senior Bowl, I was a preacher, right? People can't tell me that they watched Danielle Hunter and thought he was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, he had a monster rookie year where he didn't play 100% of snaps at all. He didn't even start a game his rookie year and had his best season. His quarterback hits have been under 20 every year. What do you have last year?
I think it was like 13. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, it was right around
18, something like that. Doesn't get past deflections. He doesn't scare me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
His sack numbers were pretty good, but again, he had so many guys. His quarterback hits were 22 maybe.
22 right there. I'm looking at.
So but 22 with.
I think this is the first year he broke 20, though. I think that was the thing.
It is.
Yeah, this is the first year he's broke 20 quarterback hits, and this is his 6th year in the league.
What's
1, 2, 3. It was his 5th year, 5th full season.
Year. So, got 5 seasons. He's been the guy. Don't get me wrong, but people have got to look at what has gone on that team, and when you've got that many guys leaving. And I love Danielle Hunter. Do not get me wrong here, guys. But you have to look in the aspect that so many guys on that defensive line are gone. And that's going to hurt a production in some aspect. Okay? Yeah. He's not going to get 20 quarterback hits. He's not going to get 20 sacks. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So he's not going to be the defensive end one. Just mark it down. I just don't believe it. And even if he's defensive end too, I'm right. You know what I mean? So I just don't think he's going to be the defensive end one. It's just not going to – I don't think he's not going to be the DL one is what I'm saying. I'm sorry. And I'm sure I'm going to hurt some feelings.
I agree. I mean, you have to look at, all aspects of the game. And you're right. I mean, things are different for him than they were before. And the upside of what he has, it's a 70 tackle, 14 sack guy. And what happens when that 70 tackles turns into 60 and that 14 sacks turns into 12? He's just you said the 20 sack upside. I just don't know if it's there, especially with the other guys moving off that line. Still an elite talent, still probably one of the best pass rushers in the league. But for IDP purposes, I think you're on to something. I think he could finish. I think he's a good candidate to finish not number one. I think.
What did he finish last year?
He finished 2 last year, which is an IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring. I actually just brought it up. He actually finished number 2 behind Chandler Jones, and it was by a lot. It was by a full 47 points. 47 points behind Chandler Jones. Danielle Hunter was actually the defensive line too. Now some people
tell me this: if Shaq Barrett gets, because he's filed the grievance. If Shaq Barrett is the defensive line, considered a defensive end,
well, where
would he be then?
Then he would have scored 50 more points than Danielle Hunter, 50-something more.
You know what I mean? So
if you put some of these other edge rushers that aren't traditionally, so if you put T.J. Watt and Shaq Barrett into that same pool as you can on Flea Flicker and ESPN with that edge designation, Danielle Hunter ends up being like defensive lineman or defensive edge, 5 or 6. Sorry, not sorry. These are just numbers. We're just guys that talk about it. So he's a great player, but I love that pick. Danielle Hunter is usually the first guy off the board at D-line, and there's definitely a case to be made for other guys to be that guy. So, and especially movement, like you said, the movement around him on that line, I mean, it's going to make a difference. So, great pick there for a bust. Oh, no, my computer's acting goofy. All right. So, my pick at linebacker for bust in 2020. Oh, boy. Take a deep breath. All right. This guy is a linebacker he's ranked number 9 in Fantasy Pros right now, and that's Dion Jones out of Atlanta. Last year, Dion Jones finished in IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring, which I just had up on the screen. He finished as linebacker 29. Linebacker 39. That's just facts. This year, I think that he had a good season too. He had 120 something tackles. He played all 16 games. He was healthy. He was just outperformed by Devondre Campbell on his own team. And even with all 16 games in his all-pro career, or, that year he had a few years back, he finished linebacker 29. And he's ranked at linebacker 9. And I think there's a good chance for him to finish below that. I mean, I think he's probably going to finish closer to 18, 20 range. I mean, you got some hungry dudes coming up that are ranked behind him. Tremaine Edmonds is ranked behind him. Devin White is ranked behind him. Fred Warner. Zach Cunningham, who I love. Zach Cunningham is ranked behind him. Devin Bush is behind him. All of these guys, TJ Watt, all these guys, I think have just as good a shot, if not a better shot, of finishing at 9 than Dion Jones. I think Dion Jones is just one of these players that he had a really good season, at a really good time to have a good season several years ago. And a lot of people loved him and they planted their flag on him. And it's just, you just want to keep that flag there. And it's just, he hasn't come through for you, and to see him only be faded down to 9, still in single digits after putting up a linebacker 3 season, I don't know. I don't have confidence in Dion Jones. I'm not drafting him. I mean, I'm not drafting him till after every one of those guys I just mentioned to you. Plus, I wouldn't draft him ahead of, I don't know, maybe like Shaq Thompson or Jayon Brown even. I might not draft him ahead of guys like that, because I just know what I'm kind of going to get with them. And Dion Jones, this Okaloon, who people have been calling to break out for a while, now he's going to be playing that Devondre Campbell role. He's a super efficient tackler. If Dion Jones can't get up to 140 tackles, 130 tackles, how can he be a top 15 guy? And if people are having confidence that Keane ONeil's coming back, I mean, I just don't know where Dion Jones's production is going to come from, honestly. I mean, he had all 16 games last year to do it, didn't do it. I think he could easily bust out from from linebacker 9. I think he could easily finish linebacker 20. So I think he's my biggest bust candidate at linebacker in the top 24 Fantasy Pros rankings right now. So, I don't dislike Dion Jones. I just think you have to look at it sensibly, pragmatically, logically, and just say, look, I mean, he had a great year some years ago, and is what I'm ranking him as based on that, or based on what he is today, what he has done recently. And I think if you can look at it through that lens, you gotta fade him. And I think 9's not a hard enough fade, and I think that I think he's a good bust candidate. So that's my pick.
I like it. I mean, and think of it, to him for being number 9, he's in the top 5 for a lot of guys for some reason. And I'm sorry, I'm with you. I don't believe it. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 guy, and it's kind of. I think it's an easy pick. I mean, I think he moves out of the top 10. I think he moves. I mean, what you said, he was 29 or 39 last year, playing 16 games.
Yeah, I mean, so many guys finished ahead of him. Zach Cunningham was ahead of him. Jamie Collins, Levante David, KJ Wright, Bud Dupree, outside linebacker, pass rusher. Everybody hates him. Finished 11 full spots ahead of him. Jerome Baker, Anthony Walker, Devin Bush, Tremaine Edmonds, Eric Kendricks, Rashaan Evans, Devin White, Shaq Thompson, Matt Judon, Preston Smith. Then we get to Dion Jones.
Damn.
Not buying it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm with you. 100% with you. Won't finish in the top 10. People, keep drafting them ahead of me, and I will go get, every single one of those guys you got after. So,
who's your bust at linebacker for 2020? What do you got for me?
Again, I'm going to hurt some feelings. Jalen Smith.
Yep, my feelings
Listen,
are hurt.
well, most people's are hurt, right? Let's not get wrong here. Jalen Smith's a savage, dude, and he's a great athlete. Came back really well from being hurt. But tell me this: if Leighton Vander Esch is 100% healthy last year, does he outperform his Jalen Smith?
Uh,
Because he did 2 years ago, and he barely even played 60% of snaps.
yeah,
So
you're right.
Leighton Vander Esch is a monster when he's healthy, and he looks healthy. I mean, all he does is keep showing videos that he's working out, hitting. He looks fine. And with everybody saying Jalen Smith's going to move more to a coverage role, an outside role, instead of playing an inside linebacker role, you got to take points away from that. I'm sorry, and he's going to live on the edge, and he's going to live on tackling running backs out of the backfield. Cool. I just don't think he's the number. I mean, in some consensus, he's the number 2 guy.
He's number 6 right now in Fantasy Pros, so I
Okay.
could see him finishing outside of 6.
Okay, even if he finishes, if Vander Esch plays where he's supposed to play, which he's just a tackle monster, right? And I like Jalen Smith. Let's not get this twisted. But I traded away Jalen Smith for a reason, and it's because I think something's going to happen with him moving outside and Vander Esch being 100% healthy. They believe in him. If they didn't, they would have got a linebacker in the draft. And let's be real. I think he's just going to be. I think he's going to finish. I think he's going to be a top 10 guy.
But
okay, still way ahead. Still way ahead of Dion Jones. Way ahead. But I think Leighton Vander Esch and him might even flip. So, and I can see that 100%.
Fair.
And they're on the same team.
Vander
and that's the only reason. A healthy Vander Esch changes Jalen Smith's top 5
outlook.
So,
yeah, right now Jalen Smith, like I said, is consensus linebacker 6. And Leighton Vander Esch is 17. I think you're right. I mean, you could see that flip easily in the rank. You could see Jalen Smith still a great linebacker, 17. But yeah, with the competition coming back and the tackles, maybe being a little bit more distributed. Yeah, I mean, I think I could see a path where Jalen Smith busts out of 6 and ends up, 15, 16, 17, and I'd still be happy with him. But you pay a premium price for him, so you have to understand that there is a little risk with Vander Esch coming back that he's not going to repeat 19.
There's a risk with Jalen Smith. That dude's knee was, another way when he came into the pros. Took him 2 years to play, so there's a risk with every player. Let's be real, but. And neck injuries scare me, don't get me wrong, but knee injuries scare me too. So,
yeah, fair. All right, well, let's move to our defensive back bust candidates then, and I'll just hit this one off. I actually have another player on the Bengals. I've got Sean Williams. He's currently Fantasy Pros defensive back 16, and I just think that I don't want to say he's lost his job, but I think that Von Bell coming in just signals that Sean Williams is not going to play the same role that he has. Von Bell is a better player than Sean Williams is. I think that most people would agree with me on that. They brought him in. They went out and got him to play that. And yeah, I just think that at 16 is just a little heavy for me with a situation that's going to be changing. I still think he plays. I still think that he could, play some linebacker snaps or, maybe they play 3 safety sets and he's out there. But I think that when it comes time to pull a safety off the field, Sean Williams is going to be the first candidate. And I think 16 is just a little heavy for a guy that has that kind of nebulous stuff around him. I know he's been a 100 tackle guy the last 2 seasons, and a lot of people have made, won a lot of leagues with him, me included, having him on teams cheaply available because he's a Bengal. But I'm just a little worried that his role is not going to be there for him in the way that it was last year. And it's funny because Von Bell is ranked 21 right now. I think Von Bell should be ahead of him. So I have Von Bell ahead of him in my rankings. But I think that of the bust candidates in the top 24, I think that Sean Williams is my pick for that this year. I just don't have the confidence in him like I've had in the past. And in 2020, I don't think you can count on him to be, a 1 or a 2 for your team. especially maybe, if we get into the season and things kind of look differently, and maybe I'm wrong, hop on. But he's the guy that I have the least confidence in right now in the top 24. So.
Yeah, I like it. Again, Sean Williams has been a 100-tackle guy last 2 years, and he's older. They didn't pay Von Bell for no reason, and they ain't moving Jesse Bates. He's too young. So that's where you have to look at it. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm with you. Von Bell's going to play. Sean Williams is going to get some playing time, hopefully, for him, for his career's sake. But they didn't pay Von Bell for no reason. And like I said, I don't think Jesse Bates is going anywhere. He's too consistent, especially being as young as he is. So I'm with you on that one.
My rankings are so far off of the consensus. I got Von Bell at 6, Jesse Bates I have at 10, and I have Sean Williams at 31 right now in my draft rankings, even behind some rookies. And that's the level of confidence I have in him. Just not a lot.
I'm okay with that all day, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'd like to know where Keane ONeil sits.
Keane ONeil is currently on the consensus defensive back rankings. I know he's tier 2, 10. People got him at 10. People have Keane ONeil as ahead of in the consensus Jabril Peppers, Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Root Simmons, Taylor Rapp, Terrell Edmonds, guys who've played ball and been successful for multiple year campaigns. Wow. He's at 10 right now. And I think is that who you're going to pick as your bust candidate?
Yeah, bro. I can't touch a guy who's been career injuries back-to-back years and been, you don't tear an Achilles and tear an ACL and come back and be a top 10 safety. I'm sorry. I just don't believe it. And I don't know why I've watched this guy been picked as the number 2 safety behind, either Jamal Adams or Budda Baker. And I can't get on board. I'm sorry. You do not have 2, season-ending injuries where you've played one game. This dude's played 1.5 games in 2 years?
Yeah.
I can't get on board. I'm sorry. I just cannot do it. We've got to fix that. So,
yeah, he's an easy.
Keane ONeil is not going to be, for me, in that top 10 guy. I don't believe it. I'm with you. Justin Sims ahead of him. I've got guys. I mean, I just don't believe it. And I don't know if it's just me or maybe I'm off the board here, but I just don't believe Keane ONeil's their guy. I think KZ's been a guy that when he stepped in has played very well for that team. And you've got to look at why wouldn't he be – I mean, you got to pay Keane ONeil, it looks like. He could be release capital at this point to me for that team. I'm not going to pay him. Would you pay him? Because isn't a contract year for him?
Keane ONeil? I'm assuming. I mean, he's been there a while. He hasn't really done a whole lot.
I think it's his 4th year. I could be wrong. I think this is his contract year. Like, it's either pay or go. And he's probably going to ask for money because he had a really good season one year. And he's not going to get it. In my opinion, he shouldn't get it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just he's my last guy for my bus, and I don't. And every single one of my guys has been a top 10 guy, and I get that.
Hey, I mean, that's what a bust is. You got to find a guy that's sitting up high and be like, look, the potential for him to not finish there is very real. I mean, you have to range of outcomes, I mean, these guys are kind of in composite, averages of what we think they can do. And if you're in a top 10 spot, and you have that many holes in your armor, that many knocks against you, yeah, I mean, that's that many more landmines you have to get around to finish top 10.
I want $100 saying Dion Jones was going to be a top 10 guy last year. So
I believe it. Yeah. You probably do it again. I bet it'd be hard to find people to actually put money on that, though, I think, at this point. They'll talk it up.
Because Devondre Campbell's gone, so everybody thinks that he's going to move back in and be the guy. That's why he's a 9.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Well, that's our
Not a
breakouts
big.
and busts. Let's read them back. I'm going to read back my breakouts real quick and then my bust. So my defensive line breakout was JPP. My linebacker was Nick Wikowski, and my defensive back was Cory Willis. All three of those guys I think are going to finish higher than where they're ranked, and they're all three ranked outside the top 24 on Fantasy Pros. And then my bust, top 24 guys that I think will finish lower than where they're ranked is Sam Hubbard at D-line, Dion Jones at linebacker, and Sean Williams at defensive back. Those are my breakout and bust candidates for 2020.
Okay, and mine would be Jeffrey Simmons, my breakout for defensive line, linebacker Tahir Whitehead, safety Marcus Maye. I think they all move way ahead, especially Marcus Maye. There's no way he doesn't break 117. So, and then my bust, Danielle Hunter. I get it. Jalen Smith and Keane ONeil. I just don't think they finish where they start. I don't think 1, 6, and 10. So I just don't believe it. And it's just on me. And even if it's 2, 7, and 11, am I right? Yeah. So I'll take it.
Yep. Bust. All right. Well, let's bring Steve in here. What up, Steve?
What's up, guys?
Not much. How'd we do?
Oh, you did great. I love the list of guys you brought out there.
Yeah.
Sam Hubbard. I love that pick. Yep.
It's hard. I mean,
they brought in a bunch of linebackers. Yep. There's definitely a potential for fall off at tackles, and I don't think he's explosive enough to get a bunch of sacks. And can he get double-digit sacks? I don't think so.
Yeah, I like him. Maybe he'll take a step forward, but like you said, it's just I said what I said earlier. Go back.
We're gonna bookmark this one and see where we're at.
Yeah, this will be an interesting episode to look back on.
And then I really like that Marcus Maye pick too, because with Jamal Adams out of there, and
I think that's the easiest one, to be honest with you.
I mean, he's gonna blow up, dude.
Somebody's got to. People are gonna try and turn this into a positive CJ Mosley situation. That's what they're gonna do.
Well, I mean, they're still gonna be able to. I mean, linebackers are gonna eat, but
just depends on who it is.
Somebody's gonna fill that safety role, but
yeah. I saw Ashton Davis was trending up on the old sleeper bot.
Right. I mean, I didn't see who picked him up in our league, but somebody picked him up in our league.
Tough year to pick up rookies and tough year to play rookies, in my opinion. It's just I like them.
Rookie camp. They're all just now seeing the.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just now seeing the stadium, so.
Mm-hmm. It's a different year, you can't. I'm not putting confidence in those guys, defense or offense. Week 1, week 2, week 3, none of those guys are going to be in my lineup unless I'm hard up.
The Chargers just signed Kenneth Murray and Justin Herbert yesterday.
Yeah, Chase Young is my only exception. I might play Chase Young week 1 just because.
He seemed like he was NFL ready.
I'm playing Kenneth Murray week 1 if he plays.
Yeah.
Ooh, there you go.
That's bold.
So. That's all I got.
I think that's bold.
You guys got anything else for the old IDP
Army
today?
No, we're good.
No? All right. Well, you guys know where to find us on the interwebs, at 50 Shades of Drunk on Twitter, at Jared Gray, at The Dynasty Chef. We're always on there putting out some IDP goodness. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like it, whatever. Leave us a review on iTunes. We've gotten a few reviews lately, which is fun. Good reviews are always nice. Bad reviews, we'll take anything we can get. Just give us an honest opinion of what you thought we did, how you like the show, anything we can improve on. We appreciate you guys. The season is 45 days away. I mean, it's real, and there's no preseason. There's no BS this year. I mean, we're just gonna turn on the TV. I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to do that. I don't care about that part.
I'm just curious.
I have no idea. I've seen nothing.
We'll see.
So, all right. Well, that's all I got. We'll see you guys next week. Jared?
Let's go.